A Ward, welcome to the Homilist Podcast, my friend.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for having me on, man. Long time coming.
A long time coming. We've been trying to connect and do this for a little while. This is cool. I
I know,
appreciate you doing
man.
it.
Forgive
But
me.
you've been busy. You've been busy. So
Yeah.
hey, let me tell you how scheming I am. All right, here's how scheming I am.
Huh?
As soon as we hit quarantine, I'm like, A Ward ain't going nowhere now.
It's too
I'm
funny.
gonna find this guy now. Everybody I've been trying to hit up, get a hold of, I'm gonna get a hold of them all while we're on quarantine. Where you
That's
going? Where you got to go? You got nowhere to go. Just stay
I,
put.
I almost started charging. I was like, well, if it's quarantine, I'm doing no interviews. I'm not even answering phone
That's
calls.
a
If it's
good idea.
$5,
That's a good idea. You should have. Well, just send me a bill. Just
nah,
send me a bill.
you could,
We'll get it.
like
We'll
I said, man, it's
get it
been a long
figured
time
out.
coming. Thanks again, though.
Yeah, man, this is cool. This is cool. So let me start out. Let me start out. Just kind of pick your brain on some stuff. Tell you just a couple of things, and we'll get this conversation rolling. It was a few years back. Not, I mean, probably what 3 years? 3 years ago, I stumbled up on some YouTube video of some guy who's saying, and it's this dude who don't even belong in this place he is. I don't even know what he's doing in it. Like he's obviously like you. I don't know what you're doing in that group of people doing that thing that you're doing, but man, it's really catchy. What was crazy about it is that it was overtly scriptural, and the
Hmm.
stuff that was coming out. And I'm like, where is this coming? And me and my buddy Luke, we sat down and I said, dude, you got to hear this. Like this is cooking my brain right now. And so I
Hmm.
showed it to him, and he's like, what are we listening to? Like, dude, I don't know. We live in this little bitty small town. Like, I didn't even know this thing is a real thing.
That's
And
funny.
and so we started listening to it, and it was really cool because it was a whole string of all the old Run That Back.
Hmm.
It was all these, and I thought, man, this is really cool. So I started following everything that was going on and what you were doing through there, and
Hmm.
it has been really, really, really cool to watch you do what you're doing, because as a guy of faith in the business that you're in, doing battle rap, do you stick out? You stick out. I mean, because that can be a rough thing. Can you tell me
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, white guy from the South, Southern accent, Christian in
Mm-hmm.
a hip hop culture. There's a lot of things that kind of when you when you walk in, you say, he doesn't belong here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, and so I've always been a huge fan of hip hop, and then became a big fan of battle rap probably in the early 2000s. And been a passion of mine. How I write, molded the way I write, as an artist, big punchline heavy type artist,
Mm-hmm.
and got the opportunity, to finally jump in the ring after a lot of years of just deciding, is it right? Like, how can I do it? Like, is it, I'm a Christian, that doesn't make sense, battle rap,
Right.
and finally got the opportunity to jump in the ring, and kind of like you said, it's been about 4 years. I think I started in late 2015, so it's been a little over 4 years. Um, and God's done incredible things. Like He's done incredible things through me. He's used me. I've been my best to be obedient to the material that's used and to keep the personality and um, just the outside, conversations and I mean, like you said, battle rap it's its own entity. It's you jumped in, you saw a clip, and then you were sucked into this soap opera. You were sucked into, you started watching on season 3, episode 9, and then you were like, hold on a second,
Wait.
I've got to go back and figure out what
Right.
all's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot wrapped into it. So but yeah, just sticking out, just being an example, just looking different or whatever, it's definitely been eye-opening for a lot of people that I've had conversations with, and I've gotten a lot of people like yourself that have reached out and said, yo man, like, thank you for being a beacon, and kind of, just wanting to dive more into it. So
Yeah. What about the early conversations you were having between you and God about, man, is this really a thing? Like, you really pulling me, like you're pulling me into this thing? Like, this
yeah.
is, I mean, because there's got to be a piece in there to where you say, man, I want to go. And if you're anything like me, the minute I think to myself, this is something I think I want to do, typically I have to go, man, is it just me saying I want to do this, or is this for real? Like, God's really going to put me in a place to be able to do this? What were
Right.
some of those conversations? What were some of those, the tension that was there? What were the tension?
Yeah.
What was the tension?
I mean, as a man and as an artist myself, like I always dealt with pride. I mean, even as like a Christian rapper, like you're putting your albums out and you're saying, go buy me,
Mm-hmm.
go buy my
Mm-hmm.
songs, go buy my talent, you know? And so, so I always dealt with that whole thing of like, you know, hiding behind the cross and trying to, you know, really push God. But I mean, and then the struggle of like, well, why not? Why can't I be Christian and make money and make a living off of, you know, what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The back and forth. Well, then you take that and you magnify it by 10 times and you're like, go be a battle rapper, you know? And it's like, the only thing you do in battle rap is compete to say I'm better than you,
Yeah.
you know? And so like that's what I really wanted to be mindful of. I'm really big on God's timing. When I started battling, I was 29 and I'm 34 now, but like I couldn't have done it at 23, you know? Like
Mm.
I was a Christian at 23. I just out of Bible college, but spiritually I was just not mature enough to go to different cities and, you know, perform like that. I just know where I would be, like what I would have fallen into and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, you know, like God's timing, and that's why I said like for a lot of years I wanted to do it. And I think just kind of adhering to, you know, God's timing and everything was just so key in that because I mean, it's a constant struggle. It's a constant struggle, you know, like I said earlier, we have to have back and forth. You have to sell matchups. You have to brand yourself. You have to make battle leagues want to pay you by bringing in fans and stuff like that. And so part of that is like social media interaction, talking trash, doing this, doing that, you know? And so you just got to really keep a core group of people around you. And I got a great accountability group.
Mm-hmm.
I got, you know, the Horsemen, the other Christian battle rappers, you know, that I run stuff by, material by. I run all kinds of things by them, and really just check myself, you know, at the door every day. So stay in
Yeah.
prayer. Really.
Yeah. That's it's a world of self-promotion,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's a world of self-promotion. And I mean, and there's got to be that piece, you
Yeah.
know, if you're going to be in there, you got to have that piece. But at the same time, I imagine that is a real fight at times.
Yeah. It's man, it's tough, bro. It is tough because, you know, one of the things I always dealt with, like even as I went to Bible college and I was working in a church, was you can actually worship your calling. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I can literally I could be a youth pastor and I can be so in love with my calling or me being a youth pastor that I'm worshiping my calling rather than who called me. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
in my head, I can justify you're a Christian battle rapper. You know what I mean? You're doing the Lord's work. You're out here being a beacon. You're in darkness or whatever. I can still worship and, you know, spend more time, you know, in that calling or in that gift or that talent than I do in, you know, worshiping God. And so like that's really, you know, like the big thing at the end of the day is just to always, you know that like anything, I mean, look at us right now, quarantined, right? Like anything, stuff can be ripped away from you like that. You
Right.
know what I mean? And then like, you know, making sure that my identity and my, you know, my faith and hope and everything still lies in, you know, the reason I'm there. So
Yeah. Well, tell me about your early spiritual development. I have a sense that maybe you haven't belonged in the category of, you know, this is a normal place for a guy like you to be. Probably most of your life, there's probably been this, you know,
yeah.
You at Bible college. I like, what's that look like?
Well, so long story short, testimony wise, like I didn't go to church growing up. I grew up in my mom was a single parent of 5. My dad was kind of in and out of the house. Was an alcoholic for the early part of my childhood or whatever. But actually, my dad and myself got saved on the same day in 2000. So I was 14, about to be 15, and my dad turned his life around, and the family kind of all came back together. And I credit it to, like I say, God's timing. It's very pivotal years. Like as a 15-year-old boy,
Mm.
even though I wasn't, you know, from 5 to 15 necessarily, like, you know, with my dad a lot, like he took me under his wing for those 3 or 4 years before college and really taught me how to be a man, taught me how to pride different things, you know, as God transformed him. Um, then so you know, as our family kind of came back together and everybody started serving the Lord, that's when I decided that I was called into ministry. And I moved from Knoxville, Tennessee, out to Overland Park, Kansas, to go to Kansas Christian College. So I went to Bible college from 05 to 07. Um, but yeah, growing up, I mean, grew up in projects, grew up around people that played sports, listened to hip hop, you know, grew up in government housing, you know, went to school, was, you know, kind of always hung out in the cultural, you know, urban, you know, type groups or whatever. And then, you know, jumped over to a Bible college. And even in the Bible college I went to was a Church of God Holiness. So it was like Nazarene on drugs, basically. Like, it was like everybody's like, the men didn't wear shorts, the girls didn't wear pants, you know, like, so
Right.
I went to a whole other culture shock, you know, like, wait, what?
Right.
So I've been uncomfortable in a lot of situations before, and just kind of learned how to adapt. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. It's an encouraging story to hear that, you know, your pops came back through and,
mhm.
you know, kind of picked up these pieces and started putting it back together. One of the things that we're, one of the things that we're working with right now on this podcast is we're talking through a whole season of masculinity, and
Mhm.
what that has a lot to do with is, you know, like what you said, you've already covered the bases of, you know, how does a man continue to grow, you know, as iron sharpens iron. You know, you're not talking about a gentle process, right? You're talking about sparks flying. You're
Oh yeah.
talking about, you know, rough parts of you getting chiseled down. Let me tell you a quick story. I had a phone conversation with a really good friend of mine the other day, and I said, "Hey, I got some stuff on my mind. I just need to get off my mind, some things I just kind of need to confess and put before you." And so I sit down and I begin to just kind of tell him, "Hey, this is kind of what's going on in my life, where I've been, and I think I'm in a good spot now." And I said, "But I just need to get this stuff off my chest." To which he responded to me by saying, "Well, I appreciate you telling me this. You know, I love you as a brother. You're a good guy. But I need to ask you a question." I said, "Okay." And he said, "What's the 10% that you have not told me? Take me to the 10% that you haven't told me. You know, is there 10% that you haven't put on the table right now?" And I thought that was such a wise thing to do and a wise thing to say on that end. Because what it did for me was it pushed me to that place of, okay, so stop categorizing things and, like, I'm going to
Yeah.
tell you the bad thing. You know, I mean, it's
Yeah.
easy to come in and say, well, I'm an addict, or I
Right.
struggle with pride, or I'm greedy, but when you
Right.
get down to the nitpicky things, the things that are going
Yeah.
to occupy some space, you know,
Yeah.
it was just a powerful moment for me, you
That's
know, to hear him kind of step in. Where's the last part? Give me the last part, you know.
yeah.
I thought that
Oh,
was pretty wise.
I can attest it, man. I've lied in my transparency so many times. You know, it's like like here I am, like, oh, I'm in a
Uh,
situation where, you know, I'm being transparent or I'm opening up, and
right.
like you say, like, not omitting that 10%, or just being kind of transparent in your head.
Right.
You're like, at least I'm being transparent, but no, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
let me get to the places to where I can, you know, break you, build you, mold you, and we
Yeah.
can really start. You know what I mean? That's yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that has a whole lot to do with it, and I think one of the things that we miss out on in masculinity is, you know, I was talking to a couple different groups of guys the other day, and I had this big whiteboard, and I wrote this little phrase on the board, and I was like, "Here's the phrase. The phrase is this: we all lie to each other all the time," and that's the arrangement. That's the arrangement. The arrangement is, don't dig too deep on me, and I won't dig too deep on you, and then we'll
Mm-hmm.
just let each other just kind of get by with this kind of
Right.
relationship. You know, we just won't don't go that far, and I won't go that far. And
Mm-hmm.
so, hey, Jared, how you doing with that thing? Okay, yeah, I'm better than. I mean, I think I'm doing all right. You know, okay, good. You know, close it down.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't
I
ask
don't want him
anymore.
asking me that next week. Yeah.
Right, right. Because I ain't gonna jump in the middle of you
Yeah.
and be like, "All right, Aaron, I need you to talk to me about the last 10%. Tell me the
Right.
last." You know, I mean, just
Yeah.
because that's a part of what becoming a man really is that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, somebody willing to just. I mean, that's iron sharpens iron.
Yeah. It's real.
I mean, that's that metal on metal. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's powerful. Who are some other influences that you've had in your life that have spiritually kind of brought you along?
Spiritually, you know, when I first started going to church, the pastor of that church kind of took me under his wing as far as me and my dad, you know. I still call him my pastor to this day. I went there for, you know, 4 years or whatever.
Where was this?
Um, it was in Knoxville, Tennessee. Then my pastor, he moved on to be the CEO of a place called Christian Healthcare Ministries. So it's basically it's Christians paying each other's medical bills.
Yeah.
So it's like a faith-based type thing where you send your money in every month and a certain amount, and then you send your bills in, and they pay each other's bills. So he's been like kind of one of my main mentors. And then as like I went to Bible college and met certain people or whatever, I have professors, I have, you know, just different friends that I've met in the faith, man, that are just, you know, have been pivotal in regards to that. I have one of my good friends, his name's A1 the LP. So he does the Brains and Bars. It's a black and white thing podcast that we have. It's a sports podcast. He's a co-host of that. And he's just a man on fire for God and a great husband and a great man. And like I look to him just in regards to being a husband and being a dad. You
Yeah.
know, just I have certain people in my life that encourage me that way. And then of course, you know, like I said, my brothers, my horseman brothers, we're just such alike. You know, we have the same passions, the same gifts. Loso's married. Saga and Street Hymns are young guys that travel and do everything. So we run into a lot of the same, you know, strongholds and different things like that. So just to kind of keep constant communication with them and just, like you say, be transparent about, you know, about the whole 100%. And that way we can kind of learn from each other. So.
Now, this might not be very nice of me to say when I say this, but I think the basic demographic of this podcast is preachers.
Okay.
And so when we come into a place, and I'm not saying it's just preachers, but I think that's kind of the who we're aiming at anyway. We just want to hit the preachers. But if I say to a big group of preachers, hey, listen, I just talked to this guy who's into battle rap, there's going to be some people who go, I don't know what battle rap is. And so how would you explain what battle rap is for somebody who has no idea what this is?
You know, I would basically say that, you know, battle rap has had like many different definitions over the time. You know, at one point in time, it was an extension of just raw hip hop where you met up with people on the street corner that were rappers and you just rapped and you competed against each other and you freestyled off the top and you came up with words that rhyme. And, you know, certain people were good and certain people weren't. And that's kind of the extent of it. Then it moved and it evolved into what you would see like in your movies like 8 Mile, where, you know, somebody put a beat on, you know, then there would be competitions, crowds that would vote on different things like that. You would rap and you would compete against each other. Now it's been commercialized to the point to where there's no beat and there's no freestyling. You know, now we're actually writing our material because we're being paid and we're flown out, and you want to make sure that you get your money's worth. So you're writing material, you're researching opponents. They come to me just like they would a boxer. You know, they say, hey, Canelo, you're Vinny Golovkin in 6 weeks. You know, you're trained because you know who you're fighting. You know, so they come to me 6 weeks ahead and say, hey, War, we want you to battle this guy. You know, and we kind of research. Some people research their opponents deep. Some people, you know, just write however they feel. You watch your battles. And it's 3 rounds, usually about 3 minutes a round, and you compete. You know, basically with punchlines, wordplay, angles, humor. Every battle rapper has a different kind of approach to battle rap. You know, some guys are just real believable. They look like they act the part. They're just bully kind of guys, and they might not be able to rap worth a lick. But when you watch them, you're just like, yeah, I've been there. I can visualize it, you know?
Right.
And then there's some guys that look like they should be doing Edward Jones, you know, financial portfolios.
Right.
And they can rap and they can bend words and they can do stuff that you've never seen, you know? And it's just a very big melting pot full of guys who love to write, love to rhyme, love to compete. And then there are guys like myself and the guys like the Horsemen, you know, who stand for something bigger than battle rap. And so we're using our platform, 1, to compete, but 2, to get a message out or to be bold, to impact, or to be there for people that might be reaching out, that might not say, I'm going to reach out to Jared, you know. No, I'm not going to reach out to Jared because he's a pastor. He won't understand me, you know. I need prayer. Oh, you know what? A Ward, you know, he's a Christian. Like, if I just hit him up and ask him for prayer, you know. So that's kind of like, you know, somebody once told me, you don't take water to the sea, you take it to the desert. And I just thought, God's put me here for a reason. You know, I'm able to compete. I'm able to be very good at it. And as long as I can stay in tune with him, not compromise who I am or the integrity of like my walk, you know, where a better place to be than to be using the thing that I'm probably best at in life, you know? Like, and where's a better place to be than to be there doing it? So
that's excellent. Now, what you said was that it's kind of turned into something that's mostly all writtens, right? But what if your rebuttal game's crazy?
Some of us, right? Some of us, you know, like I said, like, I mean, battle rap, you have your superpowers, you know. It's like a video game too, you know. Like, you have your fatalities, you have your, you know, and so, you know, there are things, you know, like rebuttals. There are things like slogans, and there's, you know, all that kind of stuff that comes into play where They're just very, very effective. So yeah, it's written, but there's a select few of people, myself included, who still like to hone our skills in regards to being able to improvise, come off the top, do things, on the fly.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, I'm supposed to come out and recite what I wrote. Like, that's the bare minimum to me. Like, you pay me, I'm coming to compete. I wrote this material, I rehearsed it, I get there. Like, that should be the bare minimum. For me to impress myself, for it still to be fun for me, like, that's when the rebuttals, the freestyles, and all that kind of stuff comes in. And I'm like, okay, all right, you kicked it up a notch,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
My favorite moments are when you rebuttal just completely out of the blue, off the top, and you just put something out there, because it's so much fun to watch the crowd watch the crowd interact with something that somebody else just said, and then you rebuttal it and watch them go, that was in real time. Like, that was in real time. Like,
yeah,
that's not something for, weeks and weeks he's been, reading and memorizing, that he puts
right.
on audio and he listens to at night and he whatever. Like, this is in real time. And are there ever moments for you that you just know, like, the Lord just handed you this gem and you're just like, oh, I'm gonna smoke this fool, I can't believe this. Like, Lord is gonna be relentless with you right now? Are there those moments that you have?
I always tell people, like, my wife always says, like, my brain is like a computer, man. And it can't shut off, and excuse me, but like, in battles, like, when I battled Chef Trez, he said a line towards the end of his first round, and it was about Alvin and the Chipmunks, and I was able to take it and flip it into a Theodore, freestyle rebuttal or whatever. And after, like, the first couple rebuttals hit, and then I hit with that one, I'm just thinking, like, I'm like, you can't stop me. I don't even have to rap my writtens. Like, I'm thinking I probably am on fire right now to the point, and I was like, I impressed myself, the battle when I battled Sharon and
the train.
The trains, and you don't get a great glimpse of that on YouTube because you can't necessarily hear it. But we're in a place called the Steel Yard, and it's underneath the train tracks, and so, like, the trains are going over the building, and it's literally shaking the building. You know what I mean? Like, inside the venue. So, so I'm in the middle of rapping, and the train goes over. And it causes some issues with audio too as you're trying to rap and the train goes over. But, like, to be able to stop and freestyle about the train or whatever, see the crowd, hear the train, do all that kind of stuff, it's like, yeah, man. And it's a testament to preparation. I always tell people, like, if you don't know your material, you're not going to try and go outside the box and freestyle.
You're 100% right. That's true for preachers as well. It's true for preachers as well.
Exactly.
If you know your material, your material, and you get up there, man, everything else is so much more fluid. Everything is so much more fluid. Yeah, that's a really good connection. I wouldn't have made. That's really good.
Yeah. I always tell people, like, dribbling too, like, like, everybody can dribble, go through their legs or whatever, but if you really have handles, like, the minute the ball kind of gets away, you know how to, like, bring it back, and you know where it's at all times. You know what I mean? So, like, when you're prepared and you have things on a string like that, and I'm like, I know I just ended this 4 bars, I know what the next 4 is, easy. So, like, I can go on a tangent and I can come right back. I don't gotta look at my notes. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you said with preaching too. It's the same way. It's just like, you're locked in. And then you're able to kind of, the Spirit leads you in different directions, and you're able to still get right back to where you were going. So
yeah, battle rap is kind of hard to follow if you can't really hone in on one guy and watch only his stuff and still be able to put the whole picture together in the middle of a whole battle, because you kind of have to know things about other people to be able to draw that stuff in. That's the thing that I learned. I'm like, oh, I'm going to learn all this stuff. Like, I'm going to watch all of A-Ward's battles. And so I learned, like, half this stuff you're talking about, I'm like, I don't have any idea what this cat's talking about. And so then it's like, well, he mentioned this guy. All right, so let's go watch that battle. I'm like, oh, no wonder he said that about that guy. Yeah. Okay, I get it now. Because it is so intertwined, it's so intertwined. That's blown me away. Let me list off my four favorite battles.
Okay.
That I've watched for you. My 4 favorite battles. You and Bill Collector, which I emailed you and I told you in the middle. You and Bill Collector.
It's the best one.
Dude, it was so much fun. And I think one of the things that made that battle so much fun for me is when I love watching when two ball players come up against each other and one dominates the other, and the other one comes down on the other end and dominates that one. And they got
Mhm.
this mutual respect with each other. You used to see it with Jordan, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and when somebody would get him, and they would be smiling at him, and he would come down and he would get them,
Yeah.
and this mutual respect. And that's what I saw with Bill Collector. Bill Collector would look at you like, huh? And even
Uh-huh.
even when what I can't remember what was second round, he goes, you know what, Ward, I like you. And you're popular too, right?
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
I really do. Amen. Amen. I like
Yeah.
you, Ward.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
just seeing the respect that he kind of gives you, like, yeah, like this is like that's really good. That's really good. Like that. So number one, Bill Collector, and there's some lines in there that, man, I can't. I mean, just blow my mind. Blow my mind. You and Chef Trez, that was a good one.
Yes.
And here's one that might be one that's way outside maybe what you would assume. You and Knox in Alaska.
Oh yeah.
That one
Yeah.
was, yeah, that was a good one. I enjoyed that one. But you know
Good.
what?
Good.
You know what it reminded me of, though. What it reminded me of is that's real good, young grasshopper. That's real
Yeah.
good, young grasshopper. That's what it felt like. It was like, Mr. Miyagi and the Karate Kid. It was
Yeah.
just like, look at you kicking away over there. You're just kicking
Yeah.
away. I like what you're doing. And at one point, I think he paused in the middle of it, and he said something like, nah, man, I messed that line up. And you're like, no, it's
Yeah.
good.
He was
This is
real
good.
honest.
It's
He
good.
said it
Go
was
on,
a
go
laugh
on.
track.
No, it's good. It's good. It's good. Keep going. That one, I really enjoyed that one, just because,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you the other reason I liked it is when you would throw a haymaker, and I mean just drop him with a line. He was as impressed as everybody else in the venue. He'd be like,
Yeah.
and that was
Yeah.
it just showed that he had a lot of heart and a whole lot of spirit in
Yeah.
being able to just realize, like, oh, like you could tell that was a bucket list thing for him. Like that was a
Yeah.
bucket list thing. Like
100%.
he was so excited to be in the freaking ring with you. It was really
Yep.
cool. It was really cool to watch. So that's my number 3, but my number 4, probably 501 Blue.
I love that battle, man. I got crazy stories about all 4 of those battles.
Yeah, well, go on. Start with Bill Collector. Let me
Okay, so
hear about
Bill
that.
Collector. Bill Collector is one of my favorite battlers ever. So I've watched battle rap for years and years and years. He's one of the top 3 battlers ever to me. Like, and it's not like he's not one of the top 3 battlers ever, but my favorite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Always so entertaining. I would run home in college to see. Back in the days, they had to upload the rounds in different YouTube videos. So you would get round 1, and then you would get round 2, and then you would get round 3. So you had to click on a different video and stuff because of all the family. But I would run home the minute that I heard a Bill Collector battle drop, and I watched it. It was just, he's such a huge fan of him. So when they called me to battle him, and they were like, "Here's our budget," and I was like, "We don't even have to talk budget." You know what I mean? Like this was like the Knox type thing. You know what I mean? Obviously,
right. Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So I go to battle Bill Collector, and I'm in Philly, and there's a guy named Eshawn Burgundy behind me, who's a Christian hip hop artist, one of the best Christian hip hop artists in America. And there's a guy named Fanatic behind me, who is part of Cross Movement. So it was Cross Movement or Tunnel Rats? Dang it. I think it's Cross Movement. Anyway, he's, So anyway, he's one of the pioneers of Christian hip hop. And so, a couple guys that like are huge, like I've been fans of, come out to support. So I'm doing an impersonation of Bill Collector, right, in the battle, right? So before we get to the battle, I stop and I'm like, I got to get some Bill Collector shades, because he always wears these shades. Right. So I go and I buy these Bill Collector shades so that whenever it's my turn, I can be like, Bill's like this, I put the shades on. So we're standing on stage or whatever, like we're getting ready for the battle or whatever. And Bill Collector's on stage and he's like, I don't have my shades. And he's like, somebody go to the car to get my shades. Like, I can't battle without my shades on. And the car's like, they're all like, nah, we're getting ready to go. So I'm really like, I got you, bro. So I pull the shades out of my pocket and I hand him. He's like, are you sick? He's like, bro, you're like the nicest person in the world.
Oh, that's right.
And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, this ain't on cam yet. He's like, you're cutting this part out, right? So he just puts the shades and I'm on.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so he raps, and then of course I do my impersonation without the shades or whatever. But the whole time he's like, he's just rapping, he's got the shades on that I just bought. So that's my good Bill Collector story. Chef Trez, Chef Trez is just a great story in itself because it's the first big battle ever to happen in Kansas City. So I had battled like your 501 Blues and your F-Mags and Charlie Atlas and stuff, and I'd even battled St. Mike in Kansas City.
Right.
But Chef Trez is a name that's up here, So to give Kansas City like that type of battle rap was just such a great, and like it being one of the best battles that I've been a part of, like it was even better.
Mm.
His rebuttals, my rebuttals, the crowd, the whole Kansas and Missouri back and forth or
Yeah.
whatever. Like I could not have scripted that battle out any better. Some people like when I get like criticism from even my peers or whatever, some people will say like, I don't like it when you congratulate your opponent. Some people will say that. They'll say like, you're a battle rapper. You're supposed to stand there stone faced. He's not impressive to you. You know what I mean? But I love battles like me and Chef Trez, like me and Bill Collector. Like even though we're like cooking or we're in a zone or whatever, like we can come out of that, that masculine thing and or joke about it or say, man, that was crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I just think the Chef Trez battle, like it fully encompassed everything battle rap, like that battle rap in Kansas City needed. And it was like really, really necessary last year,
Yeah. Yeah. And the geography line was great.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, man.
And then,
so
the comeback to, now you really don't know what state you're in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and then
good.
he was the Kansas close, and then I'm like, you cross the line. And it's just like the back and forth, man. It was so awesome.
It was good. Yeah, it was good.
And then it was like the day after the battle dropped that Donald Trump tweeted, Kansas City, Kansas. Like,
yeah, right.
It was like this whole thing on Twitter. But so the Knox battle, like you said, it was very, very much like the night before we all like went out after we got the fight. And Knox over and over is like, man, I'm hanging out with A Ward.
Yeah.
Real deal. He's like, I can get 30 tomorrow and it's still worth it. He's like, I don't care what happens. You know what I mean?
Right.
But one of the cool things is he was in the military. So he's in the Army. And so all of his Army-based guys were there. Well, also at the time, like there was like crazy wildfires going on in Fairbanks. So like there's so many firefighters in Fairbanks at the time fighting these wildfires or whatever. And the bar that we were performing at apparently was like a firefighter type bar. So like the crowd is like military and firefighters that are like risking their lives for us. You know what I mean? So you're looking out in the crowd and you're seeing people and they're like kind of up here and down here, whatever. So like afterwards, we just took pictures and I just got to chop it up and tell like all of these people, like servicemen in the industry, like, thank you. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they're like, no, like, you kidding me? I've been out here for 6 weeks straight fighting fires. Like, thank you for providing something in Alaska to do, That's so cool. That was just like a really, really cool, obviously being in Alaska first time ever, 22 hours of daylight, just a different place. And then being able to perform in front of all those guys was awesome too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and one of my favorite lines from that one was when you said, "Go on with your next round," and whatever you said, and then you said, "And then when we're done, we'll get a picture."
Yeah.
You was even like,
yeah,
so
very
good.
fitting. So, like the 501 Blue, this is probably one of my favorite stories I've had in battle rap thus far. So, I would get when I first started battling, and I really need to get back to it. I just don't want to say that I've always done it because I haven't yet. But when I first started battling, the first handful of battles, about 4 or 5, I would always buy my opponent a Bible and I would get their name inscripted on it, like their rap name or whatever, and I would just give it to them as a gift after the event. And I wasn't trying to do it on stage or anything, like make a big
right.
deal.
Sure.
So 501 Blue, I knew that his mother was a pastor, so I even use it in the material, your mom's a pastor type mentality thing. So after we're done battling, he's such a genuine, nice guy. He's really such a genuine, nice guy, soft-spoken or whatever. After we're done battling, I go to him and I take him and it's like in a bag or whatever. And I was like, hey, bro, I just want to say thank you for taking the battle. Here's this, gift or whatever. So he like pulls out of the bag. He's like, oh, bro, this is awesome. He's like, I'm a Christian, right? And I'm like, yeah, bro, like that's awesome, that you're saved or whatever. Like, and I'm not here to, say that you're not or anything like that, or right. I'm not giving you the Bible for that reason. He's like, nah, bro, like, my mama, and I was like, yeah, I was aware or whatever. He's like, thanks so much or whatever. So it's cool, Well, so after I battle him, I want to say it's about 6 weeks later. You've seen the battle with me in the arm brace, right? Mm-hmm. Have you seen? Okay.
Yep.
So about 6 weeks later, I tore my labrum and I tore a couple slaps in my shoulder, and I'm at work at the bank and they're telling me I have to have surgery, and I don't know, it was just a really, really rough day. It was a terrible day. I remember I was in my office at the bank and I was in tears, like just kind of dealing with the shoulder in a sling, the pain, just other stuff in life, the way it was hitting me and stuff like that. And I was just in tears. So I'm on my phone and I'm scrolling through Facebook, and like on your Facebook messages, you have Facebook, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so on your Facebook messages at this time, there's like that. If they're not friends with you, they send you a message. It goes to this other folder,
Right.
And so I had discovered like there's this other folder of messages that I'm not getting, So I was like, wow, that's crazy. So I go and I click on this other message, and I'm going through. There's probably 80, 90, 100 messages. I mean, as
Right.
far back as my first battle ever, where people saw me. So I'm kind of getting encouraged or whatever. Well, then I see this message from this lady, and I click on it, and it says, hey, I just want you to know I am a 501 Blues mother. And she was like, I just want to tell you that I watched your battle with my son. And she was like, both of y'all got first place. She was like, since it's the Blue Award, right? So like it's a bar, right? Like it's like her. She literally like writes out a bar. She's like, he's blue, you're a award or whatever. She's like, both of you got first place. She's like, but I just wanted to thank you so much. She was like, my son hasn't been in church in like 6 months, and like the week after you guys battled, he brought his new Bible and he sat in my congregation. She was like, and I'm not saying that he's back in church or anything like that, but it just encouraged me so much, And so like I'm reading these, and then of course I'm crying even more now,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shame on me for feeling sorry for me.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
But it was at that moment where I was just like, yo, like these are the kind of stories that I'm not going to publicize on some Facebook post to try to make 501 Blue look a certain way. It's still bad, but these are the kind of stories in the background that when a pastor does say, I don't think you need to be down there, or somebody does say like, that's no place for Christians. Like you just want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like those are the kind of stories where I bring out and say like, no, man, like atheists hit me up all the time and say like, your boldness, I don't believe what you believe, but your boldness, encourage stuff like that. You know what I mean? And so like, that's one of my favorite stories is just to kind of get a message from his mom saying, how encouraging it was to her to see him, in service.
Well, it's so cool. It's so cool to watch you because you don't do it. You don't do it in every battle, but you have these moments to where you step off, and it's not about the self-promotion. It's not about the crowd anymore. It's not about A-Ward, and his machismo and all the bravado. It's not about any of that. It turns into this thing to where you really do come at him. You really do come at him on a personal level. And I always love those moments because I think, you know what? Where else are some of these guys going to hear this message? I mean, because this is going to go on YouTube, and these cats are going to have to go back and listen to these words again and just you know what it's like to hear from the Lord on something. You know what it's like when he just comes in, or you got a brother who steps into your life and says, hey, listen, this is what you need to be thinking about, Aaron, this right here. And it's like that hits you so hard. And I love those moments. And I can think of with Cortez, with Sharon, with Blue. Like that was one that that I really just thought, man, like you hit right between the eyes on that one. It's just so good. And that's kind of where the preacher emerges. We start seeing some of the roots of that, in those moments. It's so powerful. I always appreciate those. Those are so cool.
They one of my buddies, Saga, he I don't know if that analogy is perfect, but when you're feeding a kid broccoli and sometimes you got to wrap it in cheese, and you're like, this is the stuff that's good for you, but I know you don't want it. You know what I mean? And so like when you say like few and far between, that's why like I just try to adhere to. I don't want to do that every round, every battle. You know what I mean? Because then it's going to get very, but people know whenever I have something to say, like there's a reason why we're saying it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like you say, like the material against Cortez, the material against Geechee Gotti in the third round about him having kids and being locked up and going in and out of jail. There's just different, even against Chef Trez in the third round. Just talking about like how he is such a positive guy online, or he's Muslim, and he's there's things that he raps about that just doesn't line up with like he can really impact people with his spirit and stuff like that. And like ultimately, when I was an artist, I was a Christian hip hop artist for 7-8 years. I did shows that were 50 people, 40 people, 28, 2, you know what I mean? I was around the KC local circuit. And I always had in my mind, one day, and every artist probably does, I'm going to perform in front of thousands. You know what I mean? Like I picture myself on this stage, just rocking out this show, packed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I started battle rapping and I started seeing like, hold on, this thing has 150,000 views. I was like, this is my state. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like a literal, you know what I mean? But
Right.
then I asked myself like, what do I want to tell people if I get 9 minutes of their time? You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like this battle could go viral. You know, if this battle goes viral and hits 5, 10 million people or whatever like that, like I need to have something in there that they're gonna remember. You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
And so when you say like that content, like the if you've seen probably the depression piece that I did in the mock battle,
Yes.
yeah, you know, like that's one of my favorite things to share. One of my favorite things, you know, that I've done, and it's probably one of my least viewed battles on YouTube. But like the messages and stuff, man, I think it's got 10,000 views on YouTube, and I probably have 1,000 messages or comments, you know, from that battle. And then there's
Yeah.
battles that got 200,000 that I probably got 50, you know.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah, it's a powerful tool. And you're right, you can't do that all the time. You can't do that. I mean, otherwise, Aaron, you become a bully. You know what I mean? I mean, and
yeah,
that's the truth of it. I mean,
yeah,
there's a difference between showing up and taking the moment, like you said earlier, you know, really believe in God's timing. And you show up. I mean, you could smoke guys on that stuff all day long and
hmm
pick people apart. But you know what I see and what I hear in those moments when you're doing that is you really do go to a different place. Like you
hmm
go to a different place internally. This is no longer about, you know, you trying to catch everybody's ear, you just being the center of the show. It turns into, let me talk to you straight about you for just one
hmm
second, you know.
yeah.
It's a much more humble place that you go. And I appreciate that. I think you do that really, really well. I think that's such a powerful thing.
Thank you, man. And I always tell people like we're out there playing pickup ball together. You know, like we're a bunch of friends out there. You know, hooping, competing in
Mhm.
a sport. You know, and the last thing I want to do is every time I show up, they like, oh, here's the guy that always never passes the
Uh,
ball. Here's the guy that always chucks up 30-foot three. You know, like
right.
I don't want to play with him. You know,
Hmm.
and like being, you know, doing that too much and coming in like that, you know, can turn some guys off to it. You know,
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah.
I mean, it's ministry, bro. Like we know, like that walking through there, and there's certain times for open airs. There's certain times to pass out tracks, and then there's certain times to just go and connect, play spades with somebody, you know,
Yep.
at the
Yep.
house, eat some
Agree.
food, and
Hmm.
just talk, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Salt and light. It's got to happen. It's got to happen in the right proportions.
yep,
You
exactly.
know, it's got to happen in the right proportions.
Hmm.
Um, let me tell you a few of my favorite lines here. Okay. So we already talked about the Sharon when the train passed over.
Hmm.
Do you remember what was said before that? And then what your line was? Do you remember off the top of your head? What the
Uh,
setup was? And then,
I said, the first time where I said, he's still listening. Is
mm,
that the one?
mm-hmm.
So, you know, like you approach me like you know who the gimmick is, but right when I said shakes, it did that. He still listened. I think that was the second time the train went over.
Yeah.
We on the same page or something like that.
Yeah.
I forget. Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a great one. That was a great one. Colossus.
Oh,
Listen, there was a run in there.
you want to see a dead body?
Oh my goodness gracious. Oh my goodness gracious. First
That's the
off,
first time you jump on the court with an NBA. You're like, oh yeah, he knows. That's a professional right there.
my gosh. And not only just
Yeah.
brutal. I mean, guttural. I mean, just, I mean, like, you know, some people, and which is something I want to ask you about, like, you know, there's a line in there somewhere that and I realize there's nothing that's off limits, but there's also a line in there where, you know, you could really tip the scales to where people be like, don't get around that. That dude's not
Right.
nice. You know, that
Yeah.
dude's not. There's hardly anything off limits when it comes to that cat. I mean, he will say all of it, you
And
know.
you know what? I didn't know that. Like I didn't research him like that, you know? And so I knew my material was strong. Like
Hmm.
so one of the things about that battle was I battled predominantly on King of the Dot, you know?
Hmm.
So here I am battling in Atlanta on Gates of the Garden, and I'm battling in front of all of these URL guys. So this is the first time they've ever seen me live. So I could have just took this one round battle against this young dude and said,
Hmm.
let me get my money, let's go have fun or whatever.
Right.
I was like, no, these guys can go back to their league and say, yo, you have not seen this guy live. You need
Right.
to, you know what I mean? And so I was like, this is going to be a thorough round. And I knew it was a good round. I knew he wasn't going to beat the round. But after he went first and like how like disgusting and far and just inappropriate and everything he was,
Hmm.
that's why you saw me with a little bit of edge and a little bit of like, it wasn't like with Knox, like, bro, great game, man. Keep doing what you're
Okay.
doing. It
Okay.
was like, this is your last battle ever. Like, don't.
Right. Gloves off. This, I can't believe this. Yeah.
And so I was glad that, like the material and just everything worked out the way it did, because, man, he really did. Like, you just, I mean, yeah, you're right. Everything's off. Nothing's off limits, but you're not you're a nobody in battle rap. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason to approach that battle with those kind of material. Like certain guys that are getting paid $5,000-$10,000, they're known for being disrespectful. Like, that's their thing. They come in and be disrespectful. I take the battle. I know he's disrespectful. I signed up for it. Say what you want,
Right.
But just a young buck that's just wanted to, nah.
But there was a run in there. There's a
Mm-hmm.
run in there. It's probably my favorite of all time. I mean, other than you couldn't hit St. Louis with the super duper scope. That was one of my. But which also I got the Bible. I got the Bible, which is great, just because it's callback to other things, which is so good, so good.
Yeah.
But the line with Colossus, how your name start with killer and you ain't killed nothing.
Yeah, the whole run through.
The whole run. Do you remember it?
Man, I remember writing it. I remember performing it, but I don't remember like in my head thinking it was gonna be that good. Because people message me and they say the delivery and just the swag, on all of it. How your name start with killer and you ain't killed nothing. That's like Bill collecting, not collecting real hunters. That's like street hymns never praising and worshiping. Bad news, prep showing up to freestyle. And bad news never facing adversity. That's like the something. Drugs not dope enough. Cuban never riding. Riggs never. And that's like, something like that.
Yeah, Rig never riding. Cuban never smoking up.
Yeah.
Right.
That's like Severe having a laid back pin in this battle. You got to live up to your name. I mean, even Marino never wins for that. So that's why. Is because that's his right hand man. Don Marino. And here I am, ending Colossus's life. With these punches, right? And everybody's in it. And then I just decided to take one line and end this guy's life too. Like, he just got caught in the wall, like he just got
There's stray bullets everywhere. There's stray bullets everywhere.
That's how it appeared. It was just like, yo, he's killing this dude. And then one line.
While I'm at it, I'm gonna get you too.
Yeah. And then of course that, having the horseman there, Loso is one of the best height.
Yeah, he's excellent. He's excellent. He just like, what is this dude doing? This dude, you don't know this dude. What's he doing? What's this dude?
Yeah. You're the best in the world.
And you're real tall too.
Yeah, man.
Oh, that was a great run, man. That was a great run. I mean, that whole run. And I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, no, what? Hold on. Some of these names of people and then once I started being able to piece it together, I was like, this is so genius. Like, it was so good. But I mean, but you're right. I mean, that one, from where I'm standing, like, I mean, that's what wins the whole thing right there.
Yeah.
Just that run. I mean, it's just the end, I mean, it's just,
it's cool to go back and watch on cam, like I said, like you're always trying to find ways of not being the same robotic, movements, the same boom, to go back and watch it and it just kind of be like, Riggs never ride, and just kind of, being out there having fun with it or whatever.
Oh, man, it's great.
I never practiced it like that. I never did any of that, but just kind of being in the moment, having to run it back, everybody loving it, and stuff. So it just brings a different dynamic to it. So,
well, there's that cool part. Where when you do have to come back and you say it again, everybody's yelling, run that back, and you come back through and you do it again, to where it's what it is it's the callback. It's the callback to the old African-American preachers from long ago, to where they say a thing and then the crowd knows, like, here comes that line and we're going to say that thing back.
Yeah.
And in preaching, that's one of the things that we study, that we talk about the callback, and this thing that they're going to say it back to you,
Yeah.
And so then all of a sudden now the crowd is there. And then, so you're only saying half the line,
Right.
you're only saying half the line, it's like, Rig, never riding enough. Like, you would never smoke enough, and everybody's, and that's the beauty of it, because I mean, at the end of the day, what do you want as an artist? What do you want as a preacher? What do you want as a singer? You want people to hang your art. You want people to sing your songs. You want people to repeat your lines. You want people to retweet your stuff, you know?
Hmm.
And so if you're in a live moment and you can capture everybody and
Yeah.
put that out there, that's the top shelf. That's top shelf
Yeah.
homiletics is what that
Yeah.
is. It's top shelf homiletics, you know?
Yeah, it's something I learned in my DNA battle. When I battled DNA, he had a segment in his first round where he was doing this whole the knife gets switched inside his hip, and bet I don't strike in the same place twice like when lightning hits you. You
Mm,
know, and like the crowd was reacting like every line. And sometimes as a battler, like momentum is everything in delivering
mhm.
lines. So you don't necessarily want to go back, and but at the same time, you don't want to keep going forward and not be in the right, breathing patterns and stuff like that.
Right.
When DNA he goes back and he rewinds or calls back these lines by 3 or 4 times, and because every line they're saying something new with him,
Mm,
and it's the same material, but it's about 2 minutes on camera of a crowd reacting, being engaged, and just going nuts as he's rapping.
mm,
And so when you're watching it, you're like, yo, he had the crowd that whole round.
mm,
And it's like, man, if he would have just ran through it once, it would have been a dope run through,
mhm.
but it wouldn't have been 2.5 minutes of real time
Right.
of the crowd. You know what I mean? So it can
Yeah.
it can kind of trick the eyes and trick the ears of somebody who's judging a battle that
Right.
says, no, he was cooking, he was going nuts.
Right. Right.
Well, he's like, yeah, well, he ran back the same 8 bars 3 times.
Right, right. Where was the electricity? I mean, in the eyes of the judges, where was the
Yeah,
electricity? Well,
yeah,
it was in these four lines, but I mean, they were
yeah.
over and over and over and over and
Over
over,
and over
you
and over
know.
for a long period of time. So
Yeah,
it gives you that feeling. It's a great veteran move, to just kind of like, use those, go back if you can, get the crowd to say the stuff with you as many times as you can
yeah,
until, you've basically worn out that material to go on to the next thing.
yeah. Loso did a good job with that. Was it Atlanta with the Mike Jones line and the phone number?
Oh, Houston, yes.
Houston. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes, Houston. Yeah.
Yes.
He
Perfect.
did a really good because you know what? That battle felt like it was leaning. It felt like it was leaning,
Yeah.
not in his favor for a minute.
Right. Yeah. Then
But
the first round that Scotty came out was like, I mean,
yeah,
all he had to do was hold up the Texas sign and the
and it
crowd
was
was just like, yeah.
and then when he and then but it only took him one time through, and then all of a
Yep.
sudden people are like, okay, hold on, like that.
Yeah.
All right, he's my people,
Yep.
you know.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that was a good one too. Yeah, I got a lot of respect for him. I really appreciated that. Was that the phone call you made on your way to the venue, and
Yeah.
you had Loso pray for you on the
Yeah.
way to the. Yeah, it was real cool. I
Yeah.
got a lot of respect for him.
We pray before every battle, whether it's just through an audio message or whatever. Then I get with my guys at the venue and we pray publicly, on stage or at the venue. We always huddle up and pray and just get it in or whatever. But man, Loso, like of the Horsemen, like that's like my brother. Like if I was to get married again this month, like he would be, in my wedding. Like
Yeah.
we've grown so close over the last kind of 2 or 3 years. And he is that guy who says, "Tell me about the other 10%."
Hmm.
He really is, and so like he's invested in me heavily. So like I definitely appreciate his friendship and just his walk. So
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Hey, give us a quick rundown. Some of these guys are gonna tune in. Give us a quick rundown on some vocabulary, and
okay,
let's see if we can see if we can bring some of these guys up to speed on
gotcha.
just some terms, just some battle rap terms. All right.
Okay,
So bars. You said bars. All right. What do you mean bars?
bars. I mean, it's just any kind of like any kind of basically rhyming words. You can have your bars are usually set up in 2 bars or 4 bars. I can say like you said, I can think of a line. All this battle rapping now I can't think. Currently my currency certainly not encouraging. That's a bar. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
There's the bars are kind of like the lines, and then the punch lines, usually kind of end the 2 lines or the 1 line or something like that.
Gotcha. Okay. Angles.
Angles is kind of self-explanatory. Anytime you approach a battler, you have different angles. You can attack a battler by just breaking down his character, his background, his ethnicity, something that he did in a battle one time, some way that he does his arms. You know what I mean? Talking about Sharon, but like angles are just kind of
Yeah.
some guys are great anglers. I remember that. I remember Real Deal battled a guy named Snow, and Snow was an up and comer on URL, and Real Deal used an angle in his third round, I think it was. And it was basically an angle of like he had the credit score to go buy his whole entire block, like, but he, in the way that Snow had used this line, he just took one line that Snow had in a battle, and he said, "This is what you said," and he just he dissect. I mean, it's hermeneutics, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he took it and he just like did it like this, and then did a whole 3-minute round on that one line, And so those things can be some of the most effective ways of battling if you can really hammer an angle in. So.
Yeah. So just what's my target? I'm going to come at him from this point. Yeah, got you. What about body or bodied?
Oh yeah, basically body just means you lost. You lost every round.
Yeah.
People say body bag. I mean, basically, I can't argue because battle rap's not necessarily judged. So everything is kind of subjective. There's no arguing out of this one.
Yeah, because there's a chalk outline that's all over. It's done.
Yeah, exactly.
It's done. Body, also the name of an Oscar-winning film. No, just kidding.
I was gonna say, hold on, wait.
not an Oscar-winning film. So, can you talk about them? Can you talk about that film?
Yeah, I saw the film twice. I thought it was interesting. I give credit where credit's due in regards to like being my peers acting in it and just putting themselves out there or whatever. I thought it gave a decent glimpse into your everyday kind of battle rapper. My wife, she's not big into battle rap. Her friends are not necessarily big into battle rap. They watch it from an outsider perspective, and it kind of like the relationship the main character had with his girlfriend and stuff. Like it was some real relatable type stuff, Just always sitting here thinking of lines, looking at people, thinking of like, oh yeah, you got Yankees on your hat, cool. You know what I mean? Like,
right,
doing that kind of stuff. So it was some very relatable material. I wouldn't say like it was a great movie. I watched it in the theaters. I think I watched a little bit too. It wasn't like a great movie, but it was just because I'm a battle rapper, like it was cool to see.
Yeah.
So,
choke.
So to me, a choke is when you have not finished your round and you can't get your round back. So like you start your round, let's say usually around 2 minutes and 30 seconds to anything longer than that. So you start your round, you're a minute in, you forget where you're at, you don't freestyle, you don't get your material back, you know what I mean? Or like the pause is just so ridiculously long, that's kind of a choke to me. I've seen guys that have like not had their material for 2 minutes, like of real time, which is incredibly long, pull their phone out, remember where they started and start back. That's still a choke to me. You know what I mean? Even though they kind of, did that. But yeah, like a very, very lengthy, extension or pause, or just saying time.
Yeah. Well, the battle rap community can be pretty forgiving in those moments. If you stumble for a second, you stammer for a second, they kind of hang it on you for a minute.
Yeah.
But if you can't regain it, it gets awkward for everybody. Everybody kind of goes to that place of like, look at him die, like he's up there dying, like that's
And that's the thing about the whole freestyling and rebuttaling is it's kind of like like if you can freestyle, if you can rebuttal or think of things on the spot, then you can kind of freestyle yourself out of a choke until you regather and kind of figure out where you're at. Sharon told me that I think it was his third round. He told me that he choked. Like, he didn't, on cam he didn't, but in his head, like he says like a few of the same words over and over and kind of freestyle his way out of it. But he said like if I didn't have that ability, like I would have had to stop and I would have blanked,
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
So freestyle, obviously not written.
Not written. Yep. Right off the top of it.
Yeah. Gun bars.
Gun bars is kind of any kind of material you write that includes one of the 99,000 ways to say gun. I mean,
what's your favorite way to hear people say gun, or the most creative ways you've heard people say gun?
Oh my gosh. The blicky is one. Like I even use it because it was like you take and you're like a 38 snub nose, so then they just take and they say a nose. They call it a nose, they call it an arm, they call it, it's the same line, but it'd be like, if Jesus had 1,000 noun names, you know what I mean? Like there's like 1,000 names that you call Jesus. You know, if I could just be like, you know, yeah, but my wallet has me folded, you know, and you knew that wallet meant Jesus. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right.
it's so that's why the whole gun bar thing is like it's so easy because you can take and there's so many vowel sounds. If I'm trying to rhyme with a short A, I can say gat. I can say strap. If I'm trying to rhyme with, you know, this, I could say, you know, the toast. If I need a long O, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And I could take and I could find all of these things to rhyme, you know? And so, yeah, gun bars are just that, you know, any way of saying, I mean, and you know how many numbers are on different guns? I think that there's a 1 that's a gun, a 2, a 45, a 38, a 12, a 20.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Gun bars, which is one of those things people love to hang it on you, like A-Ward and all his gun bars. It's A-Ward and all his gun bars. Like, A-Ward, you're a Christian, you got all these gun bars. It's like, all my gun bars?
It's actually funny because some fans, like fans that say that are fans that just don't like you regardless.
Right.
Because most people will say like Christians can have guns, you know, like, and some people will say, hey, Christians were the most murderous people, you know, like,
right.
Go back and say like anybody should be out here shooting people. It's, you know,
right.
But yeah, you know, my thing about it is like I love bars, period. So if it's a gun bar, it's dope, awesome. You know, but there's just a lot of laziness in battle rap where it's just like repetitive, you know.
Which makes Bill Collector's Super Duper Scope even better.
Super Duper Scope is so great.
You know
what I mean? Like, and just and
you know what's so great about it is it's you know, gun bars typically come off with a whole lot of testosterone. People always talk about they're gonna do something. I'm gonna bust a cat. I'm gonna all this stuff. But like his comes out and it's almost cartoonish the way he talks about it. And the one battle where he runs all the way across the bar and he gets on the other side, like you know, talking about the Super Duper Scope from, you know, however far away it is. You know.
Yeah. I don't know what country he was in that point in time or whatever, but he's something else. Man, that's an entertainer for you.
Oh man, so like he makes the gun bar so animated that like now, okay, so you just took something that people have beat to death and you've turned it into something that is really it's cute. Now it's funny. Now it's animated. Yeah, it's okay. So that's a new angle. All right, now go with it. Like that's good. You know. Which your line with him, you know, you hit Little John in Japan, but you couldn't in St. Louis with the Super Dupers, you know. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's excellent. Scheme.
So scheme is kind of like when you take any kind of concept and you break it down. So if I take vegetables or something like that, you know, and I go through 4, 8 bars or whatever, where, you know, I say, you know, my ice got carrots for you cornball, you know, or whatever. I think corn's probably starch, but you get what you get.
Right.
I don't eat vegetables, so but you know, like anytime you take something like that, you take cars, you know, Ford, Fusion, Accord, boom, you know what I mean, and you use all of like this one subject matter, and you break it down, and you bring it full circle. So some people will scheme like a grocery list, you know what I mean? Like, oh, here, let me take parts of the face or something like that. How about that? You know, like, okay, when I lash, you knows who's gonna hear. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it'll just be a scheme to say, I'm gonna punch you. You know what I mean? Like the overall concept of the scheme is I'm gonna punch you. But I told you I'm gonna punch you by saying when I browse online, you know, don't give me any lip or your chin checked. You know, whatever.
Right.
Then there's lines like I had against Mac Myron, right? So like I did a Pokemon scheme against Mac Myron where I use all of these different Pokemon, but the punchline is that his style doesn't evolve. And so I use Pokemon that have evolved, that can evolve. And I'd say he can't evolve, you know what I mean? So then there's like punchlines like that where the whole scheme kind of fits, you know, the subject matter, and it goes a little, it's layered according to an angle, you know what I mean?
Got you. Carter Deems does some stuff like that sometimes.
Yes,
you know, where he'll put together just layers and layers and layers of vegetables, and he'll bend a word and he'll wrap it around another thing, and all of a sudden now we're talking about green beans.
He is incredible when it comes to that, but he can get away with it too because his character is like if it's terrible, it's supposed to be terrible. You know what I mean?
Exactly right. Yeah, yeah. It's like the guy that wins because he can be most awkward. Let's have a who's most awkward contest, and then who wins. Like
Yeah.
Carter Dean's like, I'm gonna win.
Easily the hardest battle I've ever written for.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the hardest battle I've ever written for because you don't want to be too aggressive and you don't want to be too jokey. You feel like you're too aggressive, it just looks weird. You're barking on Carter Deans. You go and you try to be too jokey and too lighthearted, then he's so much better than you at that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you had like a happy medium. So that was the hardest battle I've ever written for.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing how creative he is
Mhm.
inside that. And I don't mean this bad towards Carter Deans. I love what he does. But inside that cheesy little area that he exists with, that he's so good at it. Like he
Yeah,
just dominates that little corner.
I mean, he's on Wild 'N Out. He's on MTV. You know.
Yes. I mean,
And
what
that's
about
how-
who's the son of a gun? His name just slipped me. He ba- he battled the the big dude.
Head Ice.
Head Ice, old
Yeah.
school gangster. When he battled
Yeah.
him, like that's a great battle,
Yeah, it is. It
And you
is.
can both of them, but you can see Head Ice trying to be like
Yeah.
I mean, almost looking at him like a predator looks at prey. Like I don't even know if I'm supposed to kill this
Yeah.
guy, if I'm supposed
Yeah.
to eat him. Like I don't.
And if it's possible for Carter to look any more nervous, he did. You know what I mean? Like,
Especially in front of him. Yeah.
you
Good.
don't look nervous and uncomfortable, and then against Ice, he's just like, oh my god.
Which is already an intimidating guy.
Yeah.
I mean, and Carter Dean's standing in front of him. It's like,
Yeah.
how's this going to go? Oh, that's a great one. That's a great one.
Yeah.
That's a great one. Top 3 battle rappers. Who are yours?
My favorite of all time is Hollow Da Don, Bill Collector, and Loaded Lux. So those are like, those kind of stay pretty constant. Those are not the top 3 best battle rappers right now.
Sure.
But those are my 3 favorite. If I had to say like who are the top 3 best battle rappers right now, I would say Geechee Gotti, Rum Nitty, and who else is pretty unbeatable? I would have to say Roan, since he came back. Since he came back. Roan works for Barstool Sports. He was the champion on King of the Dot at one time. Came back. He had a battle against Sharon, and it was just, he hadn't missed a beat, So those are probably the top 3 that I think that like are unbeatable kind of guys,
Yeah.
Of course, I say Geechee Gotti, and I beat Geechee Gotti, but like when Geechee Gotti is on 100 or whatever, like he's one of the best in the world,
Yeah. But these guys that are your favorites, Loaded Lux, Bill Collector. What's the constant in those 3 that you really admire? What's the thing that all 3 of them have that you really
here's the thing is like so when we're talking about me and you're like these are the things you're good at as a battle rapper,
Yeah.
Well, Hollow Da Don's probably one of the best freestylers, of all time. He's so versatile. You don't know what he doesn't do the gun bars. He does like all kinds of different things. You don't know how he's gonna attack you. He's so good at freestyling. Loaded Lux is like a talk to you kind of guy, like he's I'm gonna rip you, I'm gonna make sure that you feel this, and then Bill Collector is like, he's just an entertainer, man. He's such an entertainer. He's so unorthodox. He's so creative. Like his stuff's not even just like he's like Carter Deans is like funny, you know what I mean?
Right.
But like Bill Collector's stuff is really good, like it really is, Bill Angle to the gutter is like a rooftop, like make you pay like a jukebox hole in a square, you a jukebox,
yeah.
Like all of this stuff is like, it's really creative,
Make you bop, right?
It's like so I always react, and I always love when people say stuff that I never would have thought of. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think what those 3 guys, they kind of make up all the different dimensions of what I strive to be great at. And so when I can go watch a Bill Collector battle, I could die laughing, I could be impressed. I could watch Loaded Lux, and I could just be in awe of how he writes and how he breaks down his opponent. And then I can look at Hollow Da Don and say like what's he gonna do to you this time? And that's what I kind of want to be like. I don't want somebody to say I'm battling A Ward the schemer, I'm battling A Ward the guy who angles, I'm battling A Ward the rebuttal guy.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, like he's good at everything.
Yeah.
Like he'll go left-handed, switch hitter and put a base hit over third.
Right.
or he'll stand up there and knock this thing out of the park if you pitch it wrong. You know what I mean? Like, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's, and you know, you can tell when you're up against somebody who, and maybe this isn't very nice of me to say, where you're not ultimately impressed with where they're going, because you'll go ahead and just finish their line for them, because
Yeah.
you get there first.
Yeah.
You know, you get there first. You know, they had weeks on it, and they spent the first half, and you're like, oh, I know where this is going. You can say something about being a ginger. You can say something about being a Christian. You can say something about being whatever, and you finish the line. Where I think with those other guys, like you're talking about, there's no finish in those lines.
No.
You know, these guys are coming out with, I mean, they're saying stuff that you would really have to be locked in to be able to finish some of those lines.
If you haven't seen it, I would encourage you to go watch Charlie Clips versus Hollow Da Don the first round.
Okay.
And Hollow Da Don, like he's so masterful in how he battles Charlie Clips, you know? He basically does that. He's like, you know, Charlie Clips is this, that. He'll give you 3 or 4 lines that you get back and then tell you he got 4 bars and then the whole crowd's like, Kit, you see how he did that, you know? And so like the way that he like weaves this stuff, and he's like, your whole style's like an interstate sign. You tell people where you're getting off a mile away. Like, you know, like I'm telling you, man, it's like that's the kind of stuff that Hollow does. It's just masterful, bro.
That's cool. That's cool. What about your research? When you research a guy that you're going to battle, how deep do you dive?
Depends, man. It really depends. You know, I try not to watch too many battles because some of these guys have had 100 battles, you know, and if I go in and watch all the battles, then I'm going to hear all these lines and I'm going to second guess all my material and stuff like that. You know? So I usually write my material, maybe watching a few of the recent battles or whatever. I try not to name flip heavily because everybody flips names and it might have been said before, you know, it might have been already said that, you know, chef, you know, cooking, this, that, and the third. So I try not to do too much of that. So basically I'll kind of formulate like what I want to do with my rounds. Like, how do I want to approach it? Do I want to be serious in the third? Do I want to punch here? Do I want to angle here? And then I'll go back to some of their more, you know, impressive battles, some of the more noteworthy battles. I remember when I was battling Chef Trez, his last name is Jackson, and we're in Kansas City. So I had written this whole buildup about Kansas City and how I was going to Bo Jackson. You know, like I had this, you know, and I loved it. I thought it was a great 8-bar buildup, you know, Bo Jackson. And then I'm researching. I go back and I watch like him versus Ill Will that just happened like 3 months ago. And Ill Will's like says the same exact bar. I'm going to Bo Jackson. You know what I mean? It's like, I got to scrap that, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't dig in. I don't care if your grandma's potato salad is terrible. Like, I'm not going to talk about that. I don't need to know what your daughter's name is, how old she is. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, when I say in the third round, like, I didn't really come to get personal with you. Like, I mean that from the standpoint of, like, you know, I understand it's battle rap, you know? And so some guys are a little bit different, you know? Yeah. So most guys, I just kind of research surface level. I've never really gotten to a point to where I wanted to dig into anybody's life. I think most people can tell me battling Ilmac was like the first time I've ever battled somebody that I just genuinely thought I literally had to pray to the Lord to teach me how to love him. You know what I mean? I just didn't like him, you know, and so that was a different dynamic to that battle, you know? Yeah.
It was a good battle.
Yeah, I thought so too. You know, it was. I thought my content was really, really good. I thought his content was really good. You know, he raps really well. I wish the crowd would have, in my opinion, been a little bit more receptive to kind of being like a less biased crowd. You know, I thought the crowd kind of took a little bit of away. But like I said, like we had some real like outside of battle rap type issues, and I didn't want to take the battle at first, and like I prayed about it, and I was in a place where I had just missed out on the last King of the Dot event because a lot of times people won't battle me because they think it's high risk, low reward. So it's like he's probably going to beat me, and me beating him is, you know, unlikely. And if I do, he's still kind of like this up and comer, you know. So I didn't want to miss 2 events in a row, you know. And so even after we had words and stuff outside of battle rap, and he was just like very disrespectful to me and my family, like they asked me to take the battle, and I did. And I don't know, this is always just a feeling about it, just like, man, like I'm getting in the flesh too much, you know? And so I had to really kind of separate myself from that, you know? I think I did an okay job, but there are definitely some areas where I failed in not letting the flesh rise up. So
Yeah. Yeah. That would be tough. I mean, that'd be tough because, I mean, like we said, nothing's off limits. And,
No, yeah,
but there's a line in there. There's a mutual consideration. There's a mutual respect line that most people hold to, that you
yeah,
see inside, and, but when somebody crosses that and it becomes vindictive and it becomes nasty,
yeah,
it's evident though,
yeah,
I mean, like you can see, and maybe somebody could say, well, this guy won the battle. It's like, yeah, but none of us, but in the process, he became a monster.
yeah, 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 yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And that's
uh,
and that's in our circle of, people that, peers of different guys, like a lot of guys know, um what was crazy is, in the altercation that him and I had, it didn't lead to any kind of like physical anything like that. It definitely led to some words and different things. But like so many people saw Jesus in me by not whooping him. You know what I mean?
mhm, mhm.
Like I had so many battlers say like, oh, you really must love the Lord. You know what I mean? Like, and so
Mhm.
like it was in a weird way, like I was able to kind of be an example in restraint and different things like that and how I
Yeah.
approached it, whatever. So so yeah, it's a different dynamic when you're researching your opponents, when you're going against people you like, you don't like. I've battled 34 times. I've liked, and been fine with, shook hands with, been Facebook friends with, would invite all of the 33 of them to dinner,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then there's sometimes is that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's tough. That's
yeah,
tough. And here's part of the problem. Part of the problem, I don't know if you experience this or not, but you want to walk away from something like that because you love the art of it. You love the sport of it. And you want them to walk away loving the art and the sport of it, and then respect each other as you walk away. But when it becomes a personal thing to where it's just, I want to carve you to pieces and I don't care about you, and I'll mess up the game, and I'll mess up me, and I'll mess up you, like, then it turns into something that's completely different. And part of the problem, I think, that we have, I mean, as a pastor, I think it's easy to get to this place, and I imagine for you where you are, it's similar. Like, you want to walk away and somebody go, I got respect for you, I got respect for you, because that's the normal thing to do. That's the
right.
normal thing to. But when they don't, like, it's amazing that thing on the inside that just wants to come up and be like, I don't even know what your problem is.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
why are you coming at me? Like, what?
Right.
Like I just did a thing and you just did a thing, and we should be like, really. But I can tell this goes much deeper,
Yeah.
with them. I mean,
But
that's scary.
I had
That's
a,
a that's
I had
big.
a lot of conversations off of it, like just because there's such an identity issue just in people, like outside of
Uh,
battle rap. You know what I mean? We have such identity issues. Um, and so it could be very easy for me to be a Ward, but and sometimes it's hard for me to just be Aaron. In my
mhm,
relationship with my wife, like a lot of times I'm there, but I'm not present. You know what I mean?
mhm,
Like, oh, I
yeah,
spent all day with you, but I wasn't present. I
right.
wasn't Aaron. I was a Ward. I was thinking and doing and on my phone. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
And so as an artist too, you get this, whatever it is, 25 years maybe of, from 16 to 40 or something like that, to where you get to put your cape on and you get to be
yeah,
Ilmac or
yeah, yeah,
Thesaurus or Arsenal. And some guys, whenever, and I don't know to them specifically, some guys just don't know how to back up and just be Aaron
yeah,
or Carlos or Jared, or you know what I mean.
yeah.
And so it's just a very difficult. I compare it sometimes to like my mom was a single parent, and when all she knew how to do was be a parent. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then when all five of us grew up, graduated, and left the house, and all she did was raise kids her whole life, she was like,
Who am
what
I?
do I do now? I've never had a job, or I haven't had a job in 30 years. I don't go out and just make friends. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And so like the identity issue with people in that aspect, from an artist standpoint, is like sooner or later you're gonna be too old to be kind of doing this. You're gonna fall back, and then you're gonna have to be, you know, Aaron again.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and so that's kind of where a lot of it leads, is like guys just kind of being puffed up on that artist standpoint. So
Yeah, I think that's a temptation for a lot of guys. I mean, in almost anything they go do, whether you're going to be a hunter, you're going to be a
mhm.
pastor. I mean, there's nothing uglier to me. There's nothing uglier to me than somebody who becomes pastor.
Yeah,
Pastor so and so. I'm pastor so and so. And I'm not saying using the name, and I'm whatever. That's your
right,
own prerogative. But from, like, when you can't separate your identity between between your vocation, like,
mhm.
that's a. And again, I understand there could be duplicity on the other side of that, but
Yeah,
I mean, you be you all the time. but
Yeah.
there's these moments where we step onto Sunday mornings. I handle things differently from the stage than I do on a normal, in a one-on-one, in a counseling session, a marriage counseling session.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of thing. But yeah, I can see, but there's got to be, I mean, identity is a big, big deal. I had a great conversation with a guy the other day. Maybe you can weigh in on this. Kind of the current culture is screaming, just be your most authentic self, right? Be your most authentic self. You got to come fully into your own human being and who you are. We hear a lot of this stuff, and I appreciate some of it. Some of it I think is real, and then you get all the way back to John the Baptist, when John the Baptist says, he must increase, I must decrease. And so somewhere between, I got to get rid of some of me, and I got to become fully me if I'm going to become like Jesus. Like that could be a complex algebra problem right there.
Yeah, it can.
Real complex algebra problem,
Yeah. You're a variable and he's the constant, though, right?
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, but you're right, though. Like you want to be. A lot of times they say be your own authentic self. I don't know who that is. You know what I mean? Like I'm still 34 years old.
Right.
I don't, there's a lot of my own authentic self. And I think that's why when it says I must decrease that he may increase, is because he knows who he is. Yeah. He knows who he is and who he'll be through me. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the heart is deceitful, man. My own authentic self might tell me, this is who you are, Right. And so I don't know if I want to really follow, what my heart, my mind necessarily, So
yeah, we did some branding. We did some kind of rebranding at this church a few years back, and one of the things that we put together was a crest, and on the crest we have it quartered, and we got different pictures inside. And one of the pictures inside is brass knuckles, and so, which is really interesting. If you come into our church, you walk into our sanctuary, we've got these white banners that hang down the side, and the ones that are closest to the front are these big brass knuckles on these banners up at the front. Of course, then we got them up against the back wall, so we get these big brass knuckles hanging in there, and it's kind of funny because
got tasers in the
it's exactly right. It's exactly right. And so we get these brass knuckles up there. And I remember that one of the first Sundays, we were putting them up. We were doing the rebranding. We put them up. So brass knuckles were the very first ones. So we hung them up. And so I'm preaching through this verse that Paul talks about. The verse. I beat my body and I make it a slave, right? I beat my body and make it a slave. Well, the Greek word that he uses in there it means black my own eye. I black my own eye and I put me in shackles, and which is a brilliant picture. The Apostle Paul is a brilliant picture to black your own eye and put yourself in shackles. And I thought, man, that is so, so rich. And so I'm walking up, and there's this lady. She's passed on since then, but she's sitting on the edge of the pew. Actually, it was a different lady. It was two different ladies, but there was another lady. She stops me as I'm walking down the aisle, and she goes, "Excuse me, Jared." And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Are those brass knuckles on the wall?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, they are." And she goes, "Okay, just wondering." Okay. And that was it. And so then we went up and we preached through it and all this kind of deal. But part of that idea of, there's got to be an element of, in the process of me becoming my authentic self, sometimes what is most necessary is for me to throw an elbow over the back seat, over the driver's seat into my face that's in the back seat, that other version of me that's hollering, saying, yo, you know what we ought to do? You know what we ought to do, Jared? Because that guy's always scheming, trying to do something, trying to get away with something. That guy needs a quick one right in the chops,
Have you ever heard of a poet named Chris Webb?
No.
Okay, I'll shoot you his link whenever we get off here. But he does a poem, and he's performing his poem, and he has a screen behind him, and then the screen pops up, and it's him in his head, and he does the poem with the screen, but it's literally the guy in the back seat that's saying, "Here's what we're doing." You know what I mean? And it's like it's the whole narrative behind it is very, very similar, but it's incredible though.
That's cool.
So,
that's cool. Yeah. Chris Webb then. Chris Webb.
Yeah, Chris Webb.
All right, I'll check him out. This is excellent. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for what you're doing. Can't thank you enough for hopping on here. Appreciate you spending an hour and a half talking through battle rap and educating us. So thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. And I will, when this goes up, I'll tag you It'll be
Please do.
YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and then we'll put it out on Apple, Google,
Okay.
all the podcast platforms.
Cool, man.
So
Well,
cool.
thank you, bro. Once again, nice meeting you, man. And
Nice meeting you. Nice meeting you.
really enjoyed it, bro.
Glad we could finally connect. This is good.
Yep. God is good, man.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you later on.
Take it easy, bro.